What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the RDO podcast with the boys. Jason's back. Alex is here. How are you, brother?
I think we're both in pretty bad shape at the moment.
Before we get into that, I just want to say a couple of things. Number one, thank you to Liam for tagging in last week. It sort of helped us out. Number two, I just want to apologise for the quality last week.
That's my fault.
It's not just your fault. It was my technology on my end that wasn't allowing me to actually edit the podcast literally at all. So,
just to let you know the extreme levels I had to go to, because of my setup here, so we run this off Jason's laptop. Mm-hmm. My laptop that I use for work does not allow normal, it doesn't run the standard versions of Windows, so we can't run the same program. Mm-hmm. But I've got a desktop there that runs everything. So I bring the desktop over, it's over in the next office, bring it over here, set it all up, but that doesn't have speakers.
Yeah.
So for me to do the mic check alone, I had to record it, email it to my phone, and then play it on my phone, and it sounded okay on the phone.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I really apologise.
Yeah. So
and there was some quality stuff in that one too.
And that's what I want. Like, I wanted to apologise to Liam as well, because obviously taking the time out of his day to tag in, and also had some really important points, I feel.
Yeah.
So Liam,
I have to say my NFT bit was fire.
Yeah, it was good. It was
but
good.
No one will see it. And no one will hear it.
Yeah, so look, back to normal programming this week. Alex has stated, I think you and I are both in various states of disrepair at the moment.
I played Frisbee yesterday, and it was funny because I actually invited Liam, and I invited him in the morning because we needed the numbers. We play with the gym.
Yeah.
And he was like, nah. Like, no, I'm not playing Frisbee, thinking that we're just going to stand in a park and just launch Frisbees at each other. And then later on that day, he just goes, you know what? I was too harsh. Yes, I'm in. I'm in, right? So we played it and it was good. We're a little bit low on numbers, so there was a lot of running. And because I've come out of my injury, last time I played, I couldn't do two running steps without being in heaps of pain.
Yeah, right.
So now I was like making the most of it, and I was really putting some sprints
getting stuck into it. Yep.
And then we had a couple of beers after, and then we had a couple of beers after that. And because I'm 35 years old now, when I got home, I cracked another beer because the drunk self goes, yeah, like have another one.
Yeah.
I only drank the next of it and went, no, I don't like this. I don't like this. But I don't know if I'm hungover or I'm just experiencing the same feelings of being hungover because my body is in pain.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because maybe when you have like those really bad hangovers where your body aches, but you probably already got aches from playing Frisbee.
That's a normal hangover for me.
Oh, is it?
Body aches is a normal hangover.
Yeah, right. How often do you get body aches after drinking?
Oh, only, like, I can drink, but not, like, I can have 2 drinks and feel nothing. But, obviously 4 drinks, I feel something.
Yeah, okay.
And 2 of them were golds.
Yeah, right.
But maybe mixing? I can't mix now.
Yeah, it could be mixing.
Because I had 2 of those and then Peroni Reds after.
Yeah, okay. Oh, maybe you're just getting old, mate.
Yeah, I'm getting
You're
old.
going to get gout soon.
No, because I don't drink enough.
Well, you drink enough to have body aches and pains.
Yeah. And video watchers will notice that Jason's got a black eye.
Yeah, I got a bit of a shiner. So I got into a fight with The Rock. And this is...
And he knew what was cooking.
Yeah.
Your eyeball.
Yeah, so no, I may have copped a rock to the eye via a whippersnipper at work during the week, or yesterday. It was very unfortunate timing too, because I'd literally just taken my sunnies off for probably 2 minutes while one of the boys showed me something, and then it was just as I was getting set up, ready to crack on again, one of the other boys flicked a rock up straight in the eye, so...
You missed a massive opportunity right now to make the story better by saying that it was literally as soon as you lifted the goggles up, ding, that you were hit, because that would have been a funnier skit, and that would have been a better message out there for people wearing personal protective equipment.
Yes, but the RDO podcast, we are seekers of truth, and we dish the truth out. So that's the true story. It was about 2 minutes, I had my sunnies off. I'm actually going to, this weekend, explore the opportunities to buy bigger, better eye protection to go back to work. So,
We're just rocking like sunglasses.
Yeah. Which are normally fine. Like
Oakley's are like explosion resistant.
Oh,
That's why all the all the military wear them, because there's some special thing in the frames that
what are the
lenses. Sorry,
what are the like wraparounds that
Arnett's.
are they the ones that have like normally have like the white frames that
Yeah.
like every trader used to wear back in like the
In
early
2004?
2000s?
Yeah.
I need to get some of them.
Arnett's, or some Spies.
Yeah, but yeah, no.
Actually, just in saying that, every glasses manufacturer offered white wraparounds in 2004.
So cool. But yeah, so I've got a small cut on my eyeball itself, which I think is going to be fine. Like it already feels way better today than it felt yesterday, and yeah, a bit of a shiner. So it'll be interesting because I'm sure that the bruising will probably still be around in a week's time. So I'll have some interesting Christmas photos to look back on for this year. But no, apart from a little bit of slight blurriness in the eye, it should be all sweet. So obviously I've missed 2 weeks of podcasting. So a lot has gone on.
2 weeks?
Yeah, because obviously I wasn't here last week, so it's been 2 weeks since I last podcasted.
Right.
Yeah, that's how weeks work.
That is how weeks work. Thank you very much. Just on that note, yes, my bad mathematical mind and my brain being dead, I required Jason to help me try and figure out a deal yesterday because I could not rationalise it. And it's relatively simple maths. Well, sorry, not for me.
And this was pre-beers yesterday, wasn't it?
This pre-beer, post-nap.
Oh, right.
And it was one of the more complicated ones because it was a back trade on a car with a finance payout.
It wasn't that complicated.
But it was more complicated than what I'm used to dealing with, which is, here's your car, see ya.
The complicated bit was that the customer had come to you with a proposition that was impossible. So your brain was trying to make it possible, but it was not possible.
Yeah.
Because the customer essentially wanted money back after buying a new car from the equity in their trade, except the trade had a large payout on it, which meant that there was only a small amount of equity in the trade.
It turns out his plan, the reason why it seemed so rational to him, and why I got sort of bull rushed into thinking that he was right, was he was never intent on paying.
No, he was just trying to pretend that $11,500 didn't exist.
Yeah.
So to any young salespeople or any salespeople in general, but particularly people who are relatively new at it, one of the first mistakes that you will make when you try to do a deal working a changeover is that you will work out a changeover, you'll think you've done a deal, and you've never asked a customer if they've got a payout on their trade or not, and then that completely stuffs the whole thing up.
And the other lesson is, if you can't work it out, ask someone. Don't just push on, because I could have signed a contract.
It probably would have been about an $8,000 turnaround in their favour if you didn't ask me about it yesterday.
And I have a car that a finance company will just come and take away from me.
Yeah.
So I'm much worse off.
Yeah. So, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Refer to your manager.
Yeah, refer to your manager, but also ask if the customer's trade has a payout.
Yeah.
Now, so today is Saturday morning, obviously the 18th of December. We're up here in sunny, beautiful Queensland, where yesterday the vaccine mandates came into play. We've also gone back to masking is compulsory in Queensland again.
Yeah.
And what I found fascinating, because now, one of the best things about this new job that I've been doing over the last couple of weeks is I barely touch my phone all day.
Yep.
Like if I've got a lunch break or something like that, I'll quickly flick through, maybe see messages and stuff, but I'm not going through like the news feeds and stuff like I normally do. So I'm missing a lot of just the garbage, the same garbage over and over again. But some of the things that I have seen in the last couple of weeks is how a lot of the politicians or bureaucrats are now just saying stuff in press conferences that they're supposed to just be saying out the back and pretending doesn't exist. So like the interesting one, so we spoke about nudge units 2 weeks ago. The interesting one from Brett Sutton down in Victoria over the last week was where he came out saying that there's like 300,000 Victorians that aren't fully vaccinated. Out of that, 150,000 of them will just never get it. But our research shows that the other 150,000 will be susceptible to pressure. Literally said it at a press conference.
Yeah.
So in other words, that's exactly what we're talking about, these nudge units. They've done an analysis of these people who have yet to accept the vaccine into their lives, And they've gone, yeah, I reckon these 150,000 people will be susceptible to pressure. So let's put pressure on them and then they'll go and do it.
And again, to your credit, that's what you've been saying has happened from the get-go, is this slightly nudge, and it's all, like, it's obviously laid out in a plan. They know the best way to get the desired result. And let's understand, and I think people are seeing it now too, this is not a result about safety.
No, the desired result seems to be 90% vaccination rate on all states, which is obviously...
I don't think, no, it's higher. It's got to be higher because Victoria and New South Wales are already there, and yet they're still pushing it.
Yeah, because they're trying to sell boosters.
Yeah, so it's not 90%. It's 150%.
Yeah.
For now.
Plus.
And I had a friend ring me yesterday, blowing up about it, but he almost fell for it again because he goes, "Oh, like the boosters are only for immunocompromised and old." I'm like, Have you heard that before?
Yeah, that's what they said when they were talking about approving boosters. We said this on the pod. They were talking about approving boosters, and they're like, yeah, so, the boosters will only be for immunocompromised and the elderly. It was like a week later, maybe not even a week, it might have been 5 days later. They were just like, the TGA's approved boosters for everyone.
Yeah.
Like it was the same week.
And if you think that the boosters are only going to be optional for those people, you haven't been listening.
Yeah, and I mean, Dan Andrews has been saying it for months that it's still going to be the vaccinated economy in Victoria, and it's all going to be about maintaining your vaccinated status.
Yeah.
There was another stat that came out this week that apparently 454,000 Victorians are currently overdue for their booster.
Right.
So you would assume pretty soon that they'll lose their fully vaccinated status, not be able to participate in the vaccinated economy.
So keep an eye out for what that ramp up of pressure looks like in Victoria.
Well, we're seeing the beginning of it in Queensland. Because what's really interesting about these mandates that have come in is Queensland's literally going the opposite way to New South Wales and Victoria. So they're the three big states out of all this. No one cares about what's happening in WA. Like, no one lives in WA unless you're a minor. So Mark McGowan's crazy. Let's just leave them out of it. But the three big states on the eastern side of the country, it's funny and crazy and just stupid to think that on the 15th of December, New South Wales got rid of a lot of restrictions on the unvaccinated because they had their, lockout of unvaccinated people since mid-October.
Yeah.
They just got rid of it in December, so the unvax can be allowed back out again.
Yeah.
Now, they still haven't gotten rid of mandates in a lot of businesses in certain areas, but in some areas they have removed them because they're trying to push on with their reopening.
Yeah.
And
probably because it's liberal.
Exactly. So again, going back into this whole theory about all this stuff shifting, heading towards a federal election, clearly Dom Perrottet and the Liberal Party in New South Wales has to toe the line with what Scott Morrison's saying. So they're just pushing on, even though their case numbers continue to rise. But Dom Perrottet, to his credit, said this week, media, you got to stop just talking about case numbers. You have got to just focus on hospitalizations and deaths.
Yes.
Another observation on that before I move on, reading the Voice of Victoria page.
Great, you need to follow that.
Yeah.
Page. She's on such amazing
Really, really good analysis. But what was super interesting was she realised, because she watched press conferences back to back this week, Victoria first, then New South Wales, and she made a fascinating point about the media, which was, she said it is clear as day the media wants this problem to continue as long as possible.
Right.
Based on the questions they asked at the end of the press conferences.
Or didn't ask.
Or didn't ask. Because the press conferences were very different. Victoria's was Omicron, scary, more restrictions. And the press basically asked nothing.
Yeah.
They declared their new pandemic down in Victoria, because now they've got the pandemic powers have gone through.
Yeah.
So they declared that. Part of that is that they have to table the health advice that justifies the restrictions within 7 days. Not one reporter asked a question about the health advice.
Yeah.
Right? You think that would be the lowest hanging fruit. I've declared the pandemic with these brand new powers. You're supposed to table the health advice. What's the health advice? Have you got that available for us?
Yeah.
To justify your restrictions. No questions about it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, straight afterwards, New South Wales had their press conference where they were essentially talking about how we're pushing on with our reopening. Yes, the case numbers are increasing. We've prepared for this by having a large vaccinated population. We've invested into our healthcare providers. We trust our healthcare providers, and we're going to push on. And at the end of that press conference, the media going, but with these cases surging, how can you justify removing these restrictions and letting the unvaccinated people do this and that? Like, they were going off, like this hysteria that the media wants people locked down.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they want people upset, they want people in front of their TVs.
Absolutely.
Right? So that was interesting. So anyway, back to what we were saying before about Queensland. So New South Wales has let the unvaxxed out on the 15th and is pushing on with their reopening, even though their case numbers are increasing. I think they've been over 1,000 a day for the last few days at least. And now you got to think they were only at like 200 to 300 a day a week ago.
Yep.
But they're pushing on. Queensland, meanwhile, what have we got, 20 cases or something at the moment? They're like, everyone's got to mask up. You already saw the backflip during the week of those 2 flights that were
from
Newcastle to Brisbane, that because there was like 1 case of COVID on board, they were like, and you got to remember, everyone coming up on that flight had to be fully vaccinated. So they were like, every single person on those 2 flights is now a casual contact and you need to quarantine for 2 weeks, so you're going to miss Christmas. And then within 24 hours, they completely backflipped on it. And the best thing about it was the article I saw about the backflip, where they stated that after speaking to top doctors, they had made the decision to only quarantine the people 2 and 3 rows around the infected person and let everyone else skip quarantine. So in other words, top doctors, who are they? Like, obviously, that's not the chief health officer.
And it's not doctors, because I can tell you a doctor story after this.
Okay. So normally the CHO would be the one making all the calls on this, but they don't want to put the responsibility on the CHO. Just speak to top doctors instead. Don't name them, so no one knows. Like, there's, in other words, another perfect example. We've been saying this the entire pandemic about the Queensland government, but they're all the same. There's zero accountability. Because they just go, okay, so we're going to backflip on this because it's politically inconvenient, because it essentially says that being vaccinated does nothing.
Yeah, they got smashed on social media.
Yeah.
Everyone was saying, well, hold on, they're all double vaccinated.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be getting rid of that. That was the whole idea.
That's right.
Why we got to this level.
That's right.
And then this happens, and we know that they've just read those things and gone, okay, this is not...
That's right, because it's not based on health advice, it's based on political advice.
Yeah.
And again, like, we have to hold these people accountable for just going, who'd you speak to? Top doctor. Who was it? Yeah, it was a top doctor. That's who we spoke to, got the advice from.
I had another conversation with someone yesterday, and he's now blowing up about it. He's a bit younger than us. Because, in his words, I did the right thing, I did everything that was asked of us, and now it appears that we are right back where we started. There's no benefit, there's no... Obviously, it's not safe. And he also made the comment that he's not politically active. And I said, I think this is time that you should be.
Yeah.
And he's like, but what do you do? And I said, put a shot across the bow of politics and vote someone in that's not one of the 2 major parties. Yeah. And he's like who? And I said, I'm voting United Australia. And he goes, like that. So I said, your reaction is interesting because you know nothing about politics, yet you know how to feel about a particular party. Why do you have that feeling?
Where does that come from?
Where does it come from? And you know the whole reason why this conversation started is because the current political environment has not helped you, yet you haven't even looked. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. And he accepted it. That
is the best way to handle that sort of reaction.
Yeah.
Is just ask those questions.
Yeah.
Because they can't answer them.
They can't answer.
And then that actually forces them to think.
Corrupt. Righto.
Yeah.
What about what's happening in literally every state at the moment?
That's right.
And we've got a federal government that is denying the ability for a federal anti-corruption watchdog. Yeah. On the doctor thing, I went to the doctor to see if I could get an exemption. And this is the doctor's own words. If I give you an exemption, I will lose my job. There are 2 ways that you can get a limited exemption.
Which is like 3 months, isn't it?
For 3 months. And the conditions are, you had an adverse reaction to the first shot, or you currently have pericarditis or myocarditis.
And that's it.
And that only gets you 3 months.
Yeah. So imagine being a doctor and going to university, and I'm pretty sure that the average cost of a medical degree in Australia is somewhere between 120 and 200,000, depending on the uni you go to. And paying that kind of money and having that sort of debt, and going, I'm trained up in one of the most prestigious fields in the country. I'm a doctor. I'm one of the most respected members of society. And then sitting there and going, okay, Mr. Government, what am I allowed to tell people they can have?
She had the Atagi printout under the keyboard ready to go.
Because she's handling it every day.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, okay, so I'd only just heard this theory this week, and I can't believe we haven't spoken about it.
Mm-hmm.
People doing the maths about Queensland's actual vaccine rate.
Right.
Because they're saying we're at 80%, but we've only administered 3 million doses of vaccine.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that stuff because it's 80% above 16 years old.
And that are eligible.
Yeah. I've seen some of these things fly around before, but the problem is a lot of them are old because if you actually look at the COVID Live website, which tracks all the vaccination numbers, the amount of vaccines that have been administered are actually way higher than what's on a lot of those things that are flying around. Because I had one sent to me a few weeks ago and I was like, that's not accurate. I don't know if it's the same one.
But would it be... Can we check?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at population.
Well, Queensland's population is about 5 million people, roughly. And if you go to the COVID Live website, vaccinations, Queensland has done 7,775,000 vaccinations.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, if you've got 5 million people...
5 million, yeah. Less. Yeah, it says 5.1 as of... Or 5.2 as of 2020.
As of 2020?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, as in population.
Population.
Yeah. So that calculation that you got sent, how many vaccines did they say had been administered?
I didn't get sent it. I just heard it, and that's why I wanted to confirm the figures.
Yeah, so, that's why... So I've just got this COVID Live website on my phone all the time, so I can just go and check the data.
Yeah.
So when you get sent stuff like that, I can put a link in the description. It's just covidlive.com.au. It's up-to-date data from Australia. It literally covers everything. So while I'm in here, we're up to 246,753 total cases since the pandemic began. Still only at 2,142 deaths. So literally every single week as these cases...
Oh, wait, so hold on. Is that an Australia-wide number?
This is Australia... No, the vaccination number was Queensland only.
Okay.
So total vaccines for Australia, how many have we done? 40,887,000 vaccines.
Cha-ching.
Yeah, I think the initial deal with... And who knows what it actually is because we'll never actually see the contracts. But I remember early on hearing stuff out of the United States that the initial doses were like $20 a dose.
Yeah.
So that's probably American money. So that probably makes our doses $30 a dose.
Yeah.
Times 40 million. It's a lot of cheese.
Something that I think got a lot of traction this week was Dr. Peter McCullough on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, he went hard in the paint.
He went super hard. Mm-hmm. He's super articulate. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that's got all the credentials to be making all the statements that he's making.
Yep.
And I know it's had effect because it's been raised to me. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, we didn't know this stuff. A lot of the stuff, we've been talking about for a long time because we've known about him for a long time.
I've been listening to Peter McCullough since mid last year.
Yeah.
Because he was the one who originally came... I don't even know if it was originally him, but the triple therapy or whatever, which was zinc... I can't remember the thing that ends with mycin. Can't remember it. And
not the doxycycline that they use.
No, it's a different drug. No. But he speaks about all the time where you don't just... So when we've said things about ivermectin and stuff like that, it's not ivermectin fixes the whole problem. Yeah. It's ivermectin in conjunction with these other compounds is what's having the best outcomes. And early treatment's the key to everything.
The only study that they cite is people on death's door with COVID and then giving them ivermectin and it doesn't work.
Yeah,
which is exactly the same as what a vaccine would do. If you
and what is interesting too about like the Merck pill that came out, molnupiravir, that the UK approved based off the one study that was done by Merck themselves.
Yeah.
Well, since then it's had subsequent studies and they haven't approved it in America. I don't even think they've given it emergency use authorization in America because it's only like 30% success rate.
Yeah, I wonder if that is a Pfizer marketing ploy.
No, I don't think it's a Pfizer marketing ploy. I think it's a Moderna marketing ploy. And this is the theory that I spoke to you about a couple of weeks ago. So, okay, let me get into this before I forget about it. So, obviously, Australia, we're a very, very small market. So we've got to look at these vaccinations as a business issue, not a health issue, because it's clearly not a health issue. Now, forget what's happening in Australia, because I believe that Australia is just going along with the story that America wants to go along with and the UK wants to go along with because we've just signed that AUKUS alliance deal.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden, Australia, America and UK, we're all super best friends and everyone's singing off the same hymn sheet. Which is why all...
Does everyone know that an orca is a killer whale?
Yeah, but...
And a whale being a financial entity that has so much money that they can swing around and do whatever they want. Is that by chance? Is that a coinkydink?
Well, I've also explained to you before, it's not spelt O-R-C-A.
I know, but the word is still like, it's like if you were fucking with someone, you could say that.
Yeah, it's kind of
You're
like...
not a whale, you're a whale.
A whale.
Yeah.
Yeah, so AUKUS, just for anyone who's not aware, is the alliance between Australia, the UK and America. So AUKUS, A-U-K-U-S, AU being Australia, UK, United Kingdom, US, United States. That's where it comes from. But so if you notice, if you watch all three countries, they're all just flogging the same dead horse.
Couldn't they call it co-horse?
They could have called it a million different things. But they're all flogging the same dead horse, which is, new strain, got to get boosters, got to vaccinate. And all three countries are heavily vaccinated.
Yeah.
And if you look at those two countries in particular, the US and the UK, their case numbers going up, specifically in the States, which are heavily vaccinated.
Yeah.
Which, the reason why, this is a massive assumption from me, but the reason why I feel like the case numbers, because if America is more interesting than the UK to look at because it's so bipartisan, so it's state by state where you can look at the numbers. The UK is pretty much uniform, everyone's just taking it.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting about the US at the moment is it appears most of the states that have the highest vaccination rates are the ones that the caseloads are going up the highest. And I feel like that's because those states have been told that the vaccine is going to protect you.
Yeah.
The other states have been told these are the things apart from vaccination you can do to protect yourself.
Social distancing, stay away from large crowds.
But I think it's more like the health stuff, the taking vitamins, the getting sunlight, all that sort of thing.
Vitamin D, which we know it has a direct correlation between cases and...
Yeah, that's right. And so, it's really interesting to see. So anyway, getting back to the point. All three countries are singing off the exact same hymn sheet, which is just flogging this dead horse, which is you got to vaccinate. Now, getting back to the theory that I had before, you have to look at America because America is very, very important when it comes to who's approved, who's not when it comes to the vaccines. Pfizer has been fully approved by the FDA for ages 16 and above. It's only under emergency use authorization for the kids, like the 5 to 15-year-olds or whatever. But the reality is that's the only vaccine which is actually approved by the FDA.
Right.
Moderna's not approved. Johnson & Johnson's not approved. They're still under emergency use authorization.
Right.
Now, remembering, and this is something that Peter McCullough brought up, which may put a spanner in my theory, but with the emergency use authorization, you can only qualify for an EUA if there is no approved treatment available for whatever the ailment is. Now, Peter McCullough did say that it's very vaguely written, therefore you could actually interpret that by saying that because the vaccine is approved for prevention, but then these new drugs coming out
separate category.
Is for treatment, that they're actually separate, but that may or may not be the case.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll depend how the FDA wants to interpret it to suit themselves.
Yeah.
But what's super interesting, what's come out over the last few weeks, is that the NIAID, which is the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, and the NIH actually did a deal with Moderna early on they're actually part owners of the Moderna vaccine.
Right.
So because remember how we've said months ago that these mRNA vaccines, the technology was actually created using taxpayer-funded research?
Yeah, and then they got to keep the proceeds from it, which is wild.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what appears to have
The
happened...
pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, so the National Institutes of Health and the NIAID have signed an agreement with Moderna so they could be co-owners of the Moderna vaccine, and they gave them the technology. So in other words, those companies are making money out of Moderna. Now, Moderna's not fully approved, which therefore means if you come out and you approve either molnupiravir as a drug or the Pfizer pill, potentially the emergency use authorization for Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccines might disappear, which means you can't sell them anymore. I wonder if things like those studies that have come out saying that molnupiravir isn't effective, is the NIAID and the NIH going, we need this drug to go away because Moderna's not approved yet, and that's our little cash cow that disappears if we approve the drug, because the emergency use authorization goes away.
It kind of goes in line with what we predicted, that there was going to be a pill available by sort of April next year. But now with Omicron, it looks like they've got a new wind in their sails about how much vaccination they can pull. Because what you'll find is extremely interesting is all over TV, they'll still say, we don't know about Omicron. We know it's transmissible. We don't know how sick it makes you, even though you could ask your friends in South Africa and they can tell you. We don't know, but we know that the booster shot will help.
Now, that's actually where my thoughts about this theory began, because of the reactions from the CEO of Pfizer and the CEO of Moderna. Because when Omicron got launched, when Omicron got injected into someone in Africa so it could spread, that was a joke, just so you guys are aware. No, but when Omicron came out, they did interviews with the two CEOs. Pfizer said, we believe that the booster shot will give you adequate protection from Omicron. Moderna said, we're going to need to come up with an Omicron-specific vaccine. And I feel like that's to keep their emergency use authorization.
Yeah.
Because if you let's say that you've approved molnupiravir and Paxlovid, which is the Pfizer drug. Well, they've been proven to work for Delta. They're not we've done no testing on whether or not it works for Omicron. Therefore, if Moderna can come out with an Omicron-specific vaccine, they can get an emergency use authorization for that because there is no treatment for Omicron. That's right. So you can keep milking that teat.
And we know that it doesn't work against Omicron because everyone that flew in to the UK or the US were vaccinated. Yeah, and it's Australia too. So I'm just going to say it. The vaccine doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It just doesn't work. And the fact that there is all this fear about...
it doesn't work anywhere near to the levels you've been told. Because even Dr. McCullough was saying it's probably 1.5%.
Yeah, okay. So, sorry. You're right. The vaccine doesn't work anywhere near as much as people are led to believe, which is indicated by multiple things. Number one, and this is I had a conversation with someone who's been pretty pro the program up until now, during the week, where the fact that Queensland had Omicron inside the state shows you that the vaccines don't work to stop at least the spread of Omicron or any of the variants, because the only people allowed into Queensland were fully vaccinated, which means the fact that it entered the state at all, it came in on the backs of a fully vaccinated person.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I shared with you guys during the week was there was a story out of New South Wales. This was just before they let the unvaxxed out, about a nightclub where 80 people have now tested positive for COVID. And I said the comment to you boys, I was like, because we just keep getting told that the virus is going to hunt down the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's going to hunt down the unvaccinated. It's going to go through vaccinated person after vaccinated person until it finds you. Because there's 80, everyone just needs to understand, if you think the vaccine's going to stop you from getting COVID, you're kidding yourself. If you think it's going to stop you from spreading COVID, you're kidding yourself. If you think it's going to give you a little bit of protection from serious disease, you could be correct.
Yeah.
You could be. But you've also got to do the risk reward and go, number one, am I actually going to get exposed to COVID at all? Because let's be honest, I know Queensland's locked the borders up completely, but there's still only been 2,300 cases in the entire pandemic in Queensland.
Yeah.
There's 5 million people here.
Yeah.
2,300 cases total.
Yeah.
Now, I know it seems like, oh, there's 1,000 cases every day in New South Wales. There's 1,000 cases every day in Melbourne. There's still only been 242,000 total cases in Australia for the entire pandemic. We have 24 million people here.
Yeah.
It is not an absolute foregone conclusion that everyone's going to get exposed to COVID. It's not.
Yeah.
Because the data clearly shows that. In 2 years of pandemic, only, 1% of the nation's actually been exposed to COVID.
And then the percentage of...
And then of that, less than 1% have died with it, not from it. So you need to actually be able to do that risk-reward calculation as to whether or not you might be, because you might be at a higher risk of having some form of adverse event depending on your age, your sex, your whatever the case may be.
Especially if we're going to start pumping them in every 3-4 months.
That's right, because Australia's always a little bit behind what's happening overseas, but the UK's gone to 3 monthly intervals for boosters.
Yeah.
And again,
we're to 5. We've gone back a month.
That's right.
5, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a theory around the adverse reaction thing just from some of the stuff that I think a lot of them are caused by incorrect.
People not aspirating when they
putting it
inject.
straight into a blood vessel.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon there's a lot of that. But then there's some people that aren't exhibiting, like who've had adverse reactions that didn't get the things that are associated with putting it into a blood vessel. So it's both.
Yeah,
I think it's worse pumping it into a blood vessel because that's not what it's intended to do.
Yeah. Look, it's like everything, mate. If you took the whole 25 million population and you removed the kids from it, because that's what they did with the vaccines at the beginning, and you said, all right, every single one of you has to take ibuprofen by this particular time. And you made every single person take ibuprofen at this point and then wait 2 months and take ibuprofen again. You will find a percentage of the population that has serious adverse reactions to it.
Peanuts. You could do the same thing with peanuts.
Yeah, exactly. I walk into Nate's daycare and they're like, a child with anaphylaxis is at this childcare centre. You can't come on site with any sort of peanut material.
Yeah.
So you can't even eat a peanut butter sandwich for breakfast because if you walk in, this kid might die. So there will be a percentage of the population that has an adverse effect. And I feel like that is the worst thing about all of this, is that this is the first time in history where we have put healthy people at risk to potentially protect unhealthy people.
Yeah.
Right? Like this whole theory, all the justification for mandates and stuff like that, it is all justified based around stopping spread, which the vaccine doesn't do.
Yeah, and that's what got us on at the beginning. We knew it didn't do that.
Yeah.
But we knew that we were banging on about it the whole time.
That's right.
So that's why we knew that there was something up.
Yeah.
It doesn't reduce cases.
Mm-hmm.
And a great point was made. There's a family I know that's in a bit of a dilemma because people have different viewpoints on it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a sick, one of the family members is quite sick. So obviously they're concerned about getting it, getting COVID. And he's like, one of the guys is like, well, let's say it does help like the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
What then if I have it? And I come around thinking everything's all good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas as opposed to me feeling sick and saying, okay, I'm sick now, I'm going to stay at home, isolate myself.
I can't remember who the study was from, but there was a study that came out to that effect months ago that I read. And what it talked about, because the CDC came out with data at the end of July, which said that the viral loads in the nose and throat of a fully vaccinated person, when it came to Delta, was exactly the same as an unvaccinated person. Now, that doesn't mean that the ability to spread it is the same, because the theory is that a fully vaccinated person is probably going to clear the virus a little bit faster than the unvaccinated, which therefore means at peak viral load times, you're the same, but that peak load should be shorter in a vaccinated person as opposed to an unvaccinated person. So there is a degree there where it can protect you from spread. However, like you said, there's also the other side of the equation, which is two main things. Number one, if a fully vaccinated person is going to handle the virus better than an unvaccinated, they are more likely to leave the house and go out and spending time with other people, therefore spreading the virus, as opposed to someone who comes up with symptoms who then stays home. That's number one. But, oh my God, I've completely forgotten my train of thought now. What was the second thing? The second thing was...
So walking around spreading it because you're vaccinated.
Jesus, I've just had a complete brain fart.
Potentially looking after yourself.
No, I wasn't looking after yourself. So
because we have seen like these big clusters that come up, they're all vaccinated.
It's from fully vaccinated people. Yeah.
So and look, should those people be out frolicking about? Well, yeah, they should, given what they were told.
Oh, sorry, I've thought of the second thing. Right. Thanks for reminding me. The second thing is, and this is, it was particularly true in America, but it's becoming more true in Australia, is, just touch the mic. I'll give you an example. There is a difference in testing between an unvaccinated person and a vaccinated person. So if we know vaccinated people can get the virus, and they're probably less likely to show symptoms, but they also don't get tested anywhere near as much as an unvaccinated person does. So with the mandate that came in for schools, certain people, if you're in certain roles in these schools and you were unvaccinated, you could get an exemption that said as long as you weren't around kids and you tested every single day and you wore a mask the entire time, you could still attend the premises. Well, that means that you're testing an unvaccinated person to see whether or not they've got the disease, but you're not testing any of the vaccinated people.
Yeah.
So these vaccinated people could be walking in every single day with high viral loads and no symptoms and just passing it on.
Yeah.
So...
And that's why we've always said there's a problem with looking at case numbers.
Yeah.
We've said that from the get-go.
Yeah, got to look at hospitalizations and deaths.
Yeah. And
which even, like, if you look at that COVID live data, I checked it briefly yesterday, but I'll give you the updated numbers. Currently, there are 705 people in hospital in the whole of Australia.
Yep.
And 51 of them are on ventilators. Now, you can also find active cases, which are... Where are we at? Here you go. Active cases, 25,893. So there's 26,000 active cases of COVID in Australia. Only 700 of them are in hospital and only 51 of them are on ventilators.
Yeah.
Now, this doesn't break down those numbers by age, but I would assume that of the 51 who are on ventilators, 50 of them are probably over the age of 70.
I would like to know if there has been a young person with no comorbidities that has died of COVID.
I don't know. I don't believe there has been.
I don't think we'll ever get that data.
Well, you can. I can't remember what it is because I remember looking at it months and months ago. And I would be interested to see if it's still being updated. There's some, I think it's on health.gov.au. You can literally pull out the spreadsheet that shows you every single COVID death since the beginning. It's got their age. It does have comorbidities listed. And
I remember.
Remember, I went through it months ago, and I think I only found like 4 people under the age of 50 at that point in time. And this was, when I say months ago, it's like 6 months ago, probably.
Maybe we should revisit that.
I should probably revisit and have a look.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think it exists. And
so everyone that's out there that is fearing the cases and I see them on social media saying that we've done such a good job locking the state down, keep it locked down, we're doing good. You need to understand that A, that's not sustainable, and B, the metric that you're looking at, that you're fearing, means nothing.
Yeah, can I make a really dumb and possibly inappropriate point? So we've just approved vaccines for 5 to 11-year-old children starting from next month to protect them from a disease that doesn't kill kids. There's been 1 death listed under 11 years old in Australia, which, as we've discussed before, the article even said that COVID was not the reason they were in hospital, and it's not the reason they died. But they test everyone that goes in hospital, so they happen to have COVID at time of death. And I would hazard a guess, a lot of these people who test positive for COVID at time of death, they get it in the hospital.
Yeah.
Right? So we've had, let's say, for argument's sake, we've had 1 kid in the entire pandemic, under 11, that has died, and they've used that to justify vaccination of children. Well, unfortunately, this week, we saw that horrible story of the jumping castle that blew away, and 5 kids have died.
Yeah.
Are we banning jumping castles?
Yeah.
That's killed 5 times more kids.
Yeah.
Statistically, it's 5 times more dangerous to children than COVID. Are we banning all the jumping castles?
Yeah.
Not even a fucking mention of that.
Yeah.
So if this is really about protecting kids, why wouldn't we be banning jumping castles? Why wouldn't we be banning everything that can harm them? Well, it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about selling shots.
It is 100% about selling shots.
And this bullshit notion they just keep going back to, flogging this dead horse. But the problem is, the more they say it, the more people believe it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, if you vaccinate the kids, then when they go home to see Grammy and Grandpa, they're less likely to pass the virus on. Bullshit.
Yeah, it's
bullshit. It's not true. It's just a fucking lie.
Yeah.
And they keep using to justify it. And again, I'm going to say it. This is the first time in history we have put healthy people in danger to protect vulnerable people.
Did you watch the South Park special, the post-COVID?
So good.
But, because that's what we do now in the future. We make sure that old people don't die.
Yeah.
And it had the old folks home, which was like a 100-story building.
Yeah.
Old people going, that is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense. And we've seen the video of people having adverse reactions in Bunnings car parks to, you shouldn't be getting shots in a Bunnings car park.
Yeah.
For a start.
It's like that meme that I sent you the other day of the TGA looking for cases of Omicron, and they've got like the magnifying glass out. And then it's like the TGA looking for adverse reactions to the vaccine, and they've got the big glasses on and they're like the walking stick, pretending they're blind. Like it's true. And
I'm going to call out the old people. If you need to understand that if you are the one that is pressuring your grandchildren to do it to protect you, and they have they get something, that's on you.
I'm telling you right now, I don't think that's happened. I don't think that's happening because the real old people, I don't think they feel that way. There'll be a percentage that do.
I know some that are because I actually know some that are doing it.
All right, well, yeah, but on the whole, I don't think, because I remember seeing an interview of this old woman who was in a nursing home in Victoria who'd been locked in for like months and months and months, and she's like, no one asked me if I wanted this protection. What are they protecting me from?
Yeah.
Like
I just want to hug my grandkids.
Yeah, I'm depressed. I'm at home, and like I'm telling you right now, if let's say I make it to 90, and there's a pandemic around, and my kids
will be the same one.
Yeah, we're up to our 85th booster shot.
Yeah, we're doing Zeta, Delta, Phi, the third.
Yeah. But if I get to that age and my kids have kids or great grandkids or whatever, there's no way I'm living in a little box for safety. Fuck that.
Yeah.
If I go out, I go out. Old people
I saw
die. Unfortunately, it's what happens.
When I was at the doctor, there was 3 old guys that came in.
Yeah.
Pleading for a booster shot.
Yeah. Do you know why? Because they sit at home in front of their TVs every single day, being told how scared to feel.
Yeah. And then
fuck that.
And then I was getting my hair cut the other day, and there was an old bloke. Oh, this is a while ago, but you could tell he's like a old school farmer, all the RM's gear, and his words. He's like, mate, thousands of people died every year of the flu, and no one gave a shit.
Yeah. Here's an example, like, because I thought about like my mentality yesterday when I copped this rock to the eye, right? So when I first got hit, it hurt, and I've sort of gone down, like grabbed my eye. I was just kneeling there, and at the initial point, I couldn't figure out whether or not it hit around the eye or the actual eyeball itself.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, I see blood like starting to pour out of my hand, and I'm like, I may have exploded my eyeball. Like, I don't know. So, anyway, after getting it checked out and waiting a few minutes and having things settle down a little bit, and got one of my mates to have like a look around it, obviously it didn't look anywhere near as bad as it could have been. So it was a close call. I could have lost an eye, but I didn't. And I'm thinking, if like it seems to be healing up pretty well today, there's a chance I'll be back at work on Monday. Otherwise, I might take an extra day off and go back on Tuesday. It reminded me though, way back in the day, I think we were teenagers, I played golf with a friend of mine. And we played at Carrara Gardens, that short course. And you know on the last 2 holes, how you tee off towards each other?
Yeah.
So we're on the 11th hole, someone's teeing off on the 12th, and we're walking down the fairway. And you hear the tee shot go, they yell 4, and the ball whizzes past my mate's head. Like, doesn't hit him, but it was close. Freaked out. couldn't finish the game, and I don't think he's ever played golf since. Because he was so scared by that experience. He
Yeah.
goes, I could have died. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't.
Yeah.
Like, literally nothing happened to you. So just roll on. But the perception of risk was so out of whack with what actually happened.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have you played golf and never had a ball come near you?
Yeah.
Compared to this one time that it came close to you, didn't even hit you, but because of that, you're going to bandage yourself up in cotton wool every single day. Life comes with risk.
Yeah.
We just need to decide what risk is acceptable and what risk is not acceptable. To come up here to do the podcast, we speak about it all the time. I had to drive on the M1. The M1's a shit show. Every day that road has an accident on it. So it is more risky to me to drive up the M1 than it is to go out without a mask on.
Auto fatalities way outweigh.
Yeah, what we were saying was like 1,100 a year or 1,200 a year.
I think it's
Car
more.
accidents.
I think it's more. No, car deaths.
Or car deaths,
I
yeah.
think it's more. But
So
I ride a 160 horsepower Ducati.
Yeah.
Like my crumple zone is my bone structure.
yeah, exactly. At least if you wear
cool.
Yeah, you wear a nice helmet, so at least your head will be fully preserved and it gets removed from your body.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
You know?
So I can do an open casket.
Like when we were working on during
Not
the week.
playing golf because of ball. That's not cool.
No, that's really gay.
Yeah.
Like that's really wrong word to use. It's lame. It's
Yeah.
weak. Like just get over it.
Yeah.
Shit happens, right? You
Yeah.
just got to get over it. There are people that have to deal with some real shit.
Yeah.
Having a golf ball close to your head ain't real stuff.
Yeah.
COVID, the risk factor from COVID, particularly Omicron, ain't real shit.
So something interesting about the that I never understood, and I still don't completely understand it now, but Dr. McCullough talked about it. When they talk about that like 85% efficacy rate, to me that reads like it's 85%. If it's 85, it means it's 85. Turns out that if you had if you had 1,000 people, but only 20 people got COVID, and if 85% of those people were helped because of this thing, then that gives it an 85% efficacy. But in reality, it's really under 10%.
No, what I think he was explaining in that part was that out of the people who are in the Pfizer trial, anyone who signs up for those sorts of trials is generally pretty health conscious and therefore pretty scared of the disease to even agree to be a part of it in the first place.
Yeah.
So what I think he was saying was that, Pfizer's phase 3 trial data showed 95% efficacy in preventing COVID-19, which means not getting the virus. So I think what he was saying was the majority of the people, probably 95% of them, never put themselves at risk to being exposed to COVID. So they weren't actually ever exposed to COVID, and yet because they didn't.
The number
That's right, because they didn't get it. You go, well, these people who are vaccinated, they never got COVID, therefore the vaccine works.
Interesting.
But it's not a fair test.
Yeah.
Because the only way to do a fair test is to vaccinate all these people, get someone infected with COVID, put them in a small locked room like this, and get this person to cough in everyone's mouth.
Yeah.
And actually expose them to disease. But what he was saying was that all the people that were in the group who were vaccinated are people who are naturally going to take other measures to protect themselves from being exposed in the first place. Therefore, we don't even know how many of them were actually exposed to COVID. And that's why they always go, oh, well, the data that you see in the real world is always going to be different to the data that you see in the trial.
No shit.
Well, yeah, no fucking shit.
Yeah.
But the problem is, we've seen the data in the real world, and we're still quoting the data from the trial
not that
to
compelling.
justify to continue with the fucking program that doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
And this is the other thing. So we just went through those stats. 242,000 cases in Australia this year. And we're still claiming that the vaccine prevents spread. There was 28,404 cases last year with no vaccine.
Yeah.
That's 1/10 of what we've seen this year.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, no. Oh, if you take the 28,000 out, it's like 1/12 of what we've seen this year. And yet we're still pretending the vaccine stops the spread. It's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
It's bullshit. I still believe that like people who are elderly, so I'm talking over 65 or 70 years old, or people who've got comorbidities, because the majority of people who've died from COVID are old and have had multiple comorbidities. Those people
Obese.
those people should get vaccinated. Everyone else who is healthy, just let them roll on and tell them what they can do to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Tell them the vitamins to take. Peter McCullough brought up, I think it was Peter McCullough, that one of the things that he suggests people do if they develop any cold and flu symptoms at all is take 50 milligrams of zinc twice a day and 4,000 international units of vitamin D. As soon as you develop any cold symptoms at all, whether it's COVID or whether it's the flu or whether it's just a regular cold, 25 milligrams of zinc twice a day and 4,000 international units of vitamin D. And also get like an antibacterial nose wash.
Oh yeah, the betadine.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you sort of spray it up into your nose. You have to like snort it back so it goes through and spit it out to actually clean your nasal passage. Because especially with COVID at the beginning of it, it basically sits in your nasal cavity, and that's where it starts to propagate and to what's it called? Replicate. So if you can clean that out every day or even multiple times a day, you're going to actually clear that viral load much faster. But no government officials coming out saying that.
This is the thing that I want to keep hammering on.
Yeah.
And if you've made it this far, you've heard it before.
Mm-hmm.
The deadliest virus that we're all terrified of and we're scared of and we're locking down and we're masking up. If you test positive, the treatment is
Do nothing.
go home and do nothing.
Yeah. And think about those numbers we just spoke about before. There's 700 people in hospital. There's 24,000 other active cases that are just at home with no treatment.
Waiting to die.
Yeah. No, waiting to get bad enough to go to hospital.
Yeah.
And then we go, our medical system can't cope. Can you imagine if we didn't offer early treatment for any issue, any health issue, how many people would be in the fucking hospital?
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Why do you go to the doctor for a checkup?
Yeah.
Oh, to see if you got anything so we can get onto it early and fix it?
Speaking of, where are the 4,000 hospital beds that the Victorian government claimed?
Well, I think the money for those 4,000 hospital beds that Dan Andrews promised at the beginning of last year that have never materialised, that he's now pretending that he never promised, I think the money's just disappeared.
Do we have time to do Slug Gate?
Yeah, I'm going to do it really, really briefly. Okay, one of the most interesting stories that you've probably never heard about, which I've been deep diving into over the last week, which I have heard of in passing over the last few months, but never even looked into, is Slug Gate.
SLUG.
Yeah, Slug Gate. So think of for some reason they just put gate at the end of every scandal.
Yeah.
So it's a scandal involving a slug. And to give you a very, very short version of it,
Well, go check out www.sluggate.
I'll put the link in the YouTube notes. Very, very brief summary is essentially there's a family business called iCook Foods that was created 30 to 40 years ago in Victoria. And their specialty is creating food items for aged care homes, for hospitals, etc. So for essentially feeding people who may have issues with digesting normal food. So they do a lot of pureed stuff and those sorts of things. And they've had some fantastic technology that they've created to actually make this food delicious, look good, give these people some dignity, right? And they've been operating for 30 to almost 40 years. Family-owned business. I think they employed 41 staff. Going very, very well. Anyway, about 10 years ago, the Victorian government, some officials actually got together and created their own sort of rival company to this iCook Foods called Community Chef. And there were some very key players involved in this, including Daniel Andrews when he was the health minister, Brett Sutton when he was on the sort of up and coming, and Anthony Albanese. And these guys created this company called Community Chef, which was doing the exact same role, and they were using a lot of the connections through politics to get into councils to go, okay, this council's going to use Community Chef now, not iCook Foods, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, they took out a couple of other businesses that did the same thing early on, but iCook Foods survived. They lost a lot of contracts early on, but then there was a lot of places that only signed short-term deals with Community Chef, 3-year deals, who then came back to iCook Foods because the cost was higher to go through Community Chef, even though it was government funded.
Yeah, so taxpayer.
That's right, taxpayer money. And the quality wasn't anywhere near as good, so they went back to iCook Foods. So this went on until about 2 years ago, I think 2019, I think is when this kicked off, where essentially, to summarize, what it looks like is this. It appears that there has been a concerted effort and a corrupt effort by these people that we've previously named and other people like high-ranking police officers, health...
Department officials.
Yeah, health department officials, like health inspectors, to bring down iCook Foods to take their contracts. And why it's called Slug Gate is because just kind of out of the blue, they got a health inspection where this chick claimed that she had found a slug inside their factory, but there are so many holes in the story. And they've used that as justification. And this was when Brett Sutton was now the health minister. So Brett Sutton signed off on shutting iCook Foods down because of this slug thing. And in the same time, prior to the rest of the market finding out that iCook Foods had been shut down, one of these key figures who was on the board of Community Chef ran over to the boardroom and goes, hey, by the way, iCook Foods has been shut down because of health compliance issues. Here's a list of all of their contracts. Let's contact them and say that they've been shut down and offer to help. So they picked up all of these contracts while iCook Foods was shut down. So there was a massive amount of corruption involved in this. Notwithstanding the fact that Community Chef, which was a taxpayer-funded entity, which had taxpayer-funded loans at 0% interest given to them to start up, which still had to borrow like $9 million or something from ANZ Bank as well, over 9 years, lost $2 million per year. So $18 million total loss as a business, even though they were using these corrupt tactics to steal contracts. Even though the services they were providing were more expensive than iCook Foods, they still lost money hand over fist, which again, the insinuation is kind of, where did all that money go? Because there are examples of money being siphoned out of the business with no justification.
$800,000 write-down.
So there was one point when, this is before the allegations of the slug being planted, where I think it was Brett Sutton had emailed, like they had like a $1 million overdraft facility they could use. And Brett Sutton emailed them saying, I need $800,000 out of the $1 million overdraft. And they just went, yeah, cool, here you go. Like no justification for what the money was for or anything like that. Just
we needed it.
Yeah, I just need the money.
He needed it for things.
That's right. So that money just kind of just disappeared, and then shortly afterwards, this slug was potentially planted. Now, what's so interesting about this? You've got to read through it. So the website, it has a really good summary of everything that happened. I've been listening to the Rogue Bogues podcast with Andrew Bogut because he's actually been interviewing. So Ian Cook is the owner, and his son Michael, I think.
Can't remember.
Anyway, he has done multiple interviews with these guys over the last few months to get updates on where they're at. Now, this is actually going to court in February, and I believe Brett Sutton is named as a defendant, and I can't remember her first name, but Garlic is the health inspector that planted the slug. She's named as a defendant. Dan Andrews, I don't believe, is. And there was someone else as
Albanese.
Well. I don't know if Albanese. I don't know if
Albo
Albo
was a witness. He was supposed to help though, right? Because there was an email.
Yeah, there was one minor thing which basically, when Community Chef was kicking off, iCook Foods had sent the government an email saying, look, we are concerned about the government funding this thing because we believe these things are going to happen. You're going to potentially take out like family-run businesses which employ staff, etc., etc., etc. And everything that they had said might happen ended up happening because like 2 companies went under within the first year of Community Chef being established. But Anthony Albanese, who was, I think, the head of Victorian Labor at the time, emailed back saying, look, we're going to hook you up with the Community Chef people so you can work together to make sure these things don't happen, etc., etc. That meeting never happened. So it was literally just... And also, what was interesting about it was iCook Foods sent an email to Albanese. Albanese's people sent a letter back. With the hope being, obviously, most people tend to misplace these letters and then there's no record of what was said.
Stamp.
That's right.
My biggest concern with this is if governments now get the taste of trying to start companies in the hope to, like, how much damage are they going to do to an economy when they decide, okay, we're now going to be the food. Okay, now we're going to be the transport companies. Like, are they going to buy back all this? You know, back in the day, governments used to own all the utility companies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your power, your water, and that I can kind of see. They'll never run effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how sticky are their fingers going to be now? Are they going to try everything?
Well, the thing is, I don't think that this is new. I just think that this is extremely poorly handled by these guys. And not concerns me. The things that I think about when I look at this, because a lot has been made of that $800,000 that went missing. Yeah. I'm not worried about the 800 grand. I'm worried about the 18 million that they lost over 9 years.
Yeah.
Where did that money go?
Yeah.
Like, I know how corruption can work. That money could disappear in the form of overpaying for, like, food contracts, for example. So obviously if they're preparing food, they've got to source raw materials from somewhere else. So what you do is you go to those people who run those companies and you go, hey, what's your price for beef? Okay, I'll pay you double what the price of beef is, and then in the back end you just give me a little, little
or it could
something.
be go buy the land. One of your mates buys the land that you then put the government funded building on and pay triple what the value of rent is.
That's right. Like, what concerns me is...
And you walk outside one day and you've got a Bentley parked in your
driveway. Yeah, how much money that these guys... Like, because there was active involvement with these guys to set this company up in the first place.
Yeah.
So how much money could these guys have potentially siphoned out of it? Which, again, is taxpayer money.
Yeah.
Like we already know. Like, the Labor Party's already been done for misusing taxpayer funds for things it wasn't supposed to be using them for.
Yeah.
Why would you think the corruption stops there?
Yeah.
And then this brings up all the other things, like one of the things at the IBAC hearings that was supposed to get brought up, which just sort of never did, was Dan Andrews' involvement with the firefighters union a few years ago, like 2016 or whatever it was, where essentially he's gotten the entire board of the firefighters union fired and replaced all the board members with one guy, which is his mate. And it's like, what deal has been done there?
Yeah.
How much money is this dude just siphoning out of all these other different projects that he's got going on at the moment, which are just hidden from the taxpayer? So, look, it's fascinating. And what has been super interesting about this I Cook Foods thing is that there has been multiple times where it's almost gone to court already, and then right at the last minute, like there was at one point where I Cook Foods was served 96 different charges. And I don't know how much each charge was worth, but it was like 48 charges towards I Cook Foods and 48 charges to Ian Cook, the owner himself, for breaches of the Health Act or whatever. And so they're served with all this stuff, and they're like, we're going to fight this, because fortunately these guys have very good systems. They've documented everything, like they're onto it.
Yeah.
So they're like, no, we're going to take this to court. I'm going to fight it. And they got right up to the day of it going into court, and then they just dropped all the charges.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to have to sit on the stand under oath and talk about what's actually going on, right? So I think the I Cook Foods guys have been emboldened by all of these things and have gone, you know what, we're going to just, like, we're already stuffed. Like,
financially, they're nearly ruined.
Well, they lost all of their contracts.
Yep.
So even if they were able to reopen, it'd be almost impossible for them to do so because they've lost all their contracts. The name's been trashed through the mud because they've just done with I Cook Foods like what they do with anti-vaxxers. They just drag the name through the mud. They're calling the I Cook Foods guys right-wing conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
Well, it appears these guys have been completely wronged by government.
Yeah.
They're not conspiracy theorists. They've got receipts.
Yeah.
So, this is supposed to go to court in February, and I'm telling you right now, it is going to be fascinating if it makes it there. I would not be surprised at all if Brett Sutton resigns before this happens.
Okay,
keep an eye
on that. We'll put a
Because it's just like the Gladys thing, right? So Gladys was up on corruption, well, not even charges, because it's just a corruption inquiry, which literally has no teeth. It just publicly shames you for doing bad things. But she resigned, I believe, thinking that she was going to get out of it, and then she didn't.
Yeah.
I believe that Brett Sutton will potentially resign before he has to. Oh, he'll either resign because he wants to, or he'll resign because Dan Andrews will be like, sorry, bro, time's up. You got to go because you're bringing me way too much heat.
Yeah.
Look, I'll help you out. There'll be a blind trust that drops off money to support your legal defense.
Yeah.
But seriously, I'm going to put the link. They have their own website, like you're saying, sluggate.com.au. It has a brief rundown of everything that has happened in every step along the way. And honestly, it is the most fascinating story you've never heard of that you just need to read. It'll be a season of Underbelly in 10 years' time.
Yeah, for sure.
I guarantee you. And if you think that this sort of corrupt bullshit like Slug Gate, like this COVID stuff, if you think this can't happen in this country, go and rewatch Underbelly. All these old series, which are all about corrupt police, politicians, lawyers, judges, the works. Unfortunately, absolute power corrupts absolutely. It takes a lot of balls for people at the top levels to actually stand up for what is right. And your example about your doctor experience is the perfect example of that. You've literally got a doctor going, if I give you an exemption for the vaccine, I will lose my job. If that was me in that situation, you know what I would do? I'd be like, no, this ain't right. I'm going to the press. I'm standing up for what's right. I'm going to burn my career in the process to do the right thing. Well, there's all these people who are like, you know how you're losing your job because you can't get an exemption? Yeah, well, I'll lose my job if I give you that exemption. Therefore, I'm happy for you to lose your job and not for me to.
Yeah.
So,
I made that comment.
Yeah. Anyway, let's wrap it up there. Go and check out sluggate.com.au. Stay happy, stay safe, and we'll see you next RDO.